This is a video I wanted to make since I started this channel, but I first wanted to get to the point to where I was happy with my videos, before even making an attempt. That's not to say I wasn't previously happy with the quality of my videos, or that I'm even 100% happy with the current quality. However, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, so I just wanted it to be as perfect as possible. I come from a pretty big family, as I actually have 5 siblings. Prior to a few months ago, none of my siblings even knew I had a YouTube channel. I had honestly intended this video to be my siblings' introduction to my channel. However, considering how the circumstances of my life have changed this past year, I feel like it's only appropriate to make this video. So, playing together. In the age of MMORPGs, multi-million seller multiplayer shooters, free-to-play online games, fighting games selling more than ever, and every platform having their own multiplayer ecosystem, you would think that gamers should be more connected than ever before. Though somehow, I've never felt more disconnected from the people I'm playing with. My competitors in Street Fighter usually just feel like stronger and smarter versions of the CPU. When I'm playing games like TF2, my teammates are mostly just there to complete the objective, and depending on how they play, I either consider them an asset or a hindrance. Most of the time, they aren't friends, or even people I actually know. Even after a victory with my team, there is no sense of camaraderie. It feels more like a personal victory in most ways. Well, at least as long as I can calculate and recognize my contributions from the stats. In some ways, I even feel the same when I play with people I actually know. When I play Destiny with my younger brother, it's still fun, and there's more of a connection than when playing with some internet randoms, but it doesn't feel quite the same. Some of you may be asking, the same as what? What am I comparing to? Well, let me flash you back to the mid-90s and the early 2000s. During this era, I was a small child. I was only allowed to play video games 3 days a week, Friday through Sunday. I'm the second oldest, so the amount of siblings that I had increased throughout the years, so the way we played games together had to change over time. Ultimately, my siblings and I settled on 30-minute turns. Now, turns could be extended up to an hour when you and your siblings decided to play a co-op game together. Now, co-op games, especially on the Sega Genesis, were few and far between. I know most people would probably think that we were playing Golden Axe or Streets of Rage, but no. Instead, we were playing Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, specifically playing as Sonic and Tails. My older brother would take on the role as Sonic, and I would play as Tails. For anyone who knows anything about the co-op mode in these Sonic games, Tails can be rather difficult to control, especially in Sonic 2. If you don't do anything for about a second or two, the AI will take over again. You also have no control of the screen, so you either have to keep up with Sonic, or wait for the AI to catch up on its own. Sonic 3 is a bit better in this regard, and gave Tails new abilities like being able to fly and carry Sonic, but you can still find yourself struggling at times. Fighting games were also a big deal in the house. The first fighting game I remember playing is Street Fighter II Champion Edition, along with Samurai Showdown on the Sega Genesis. At the time, I hadn't figured out how to throw a Hadouken, let alone use a Dragon Punch. My older brother would use these special moves consistently, as I struggled with the basic fundamentals. I soon figured out charge characters like E Honda, Balrog, and Blanka were more of my skill set, especially the prior two, with the ability to mash out and attack. Of course, I would eventually figure out how to perform quarter circles, half circles, and even standing 720s. But at the time I struggled. My older brother would utilize the entire cast, but leaned heavily towards the Shoto characters, which would result in him maining Ken Masters. My younger brother would use Dalsum, Vega, and Bison. Before there were more than 3 of us gaming together, instead of always using time-based turns, we would instead play using lives. One person would play the game until they lost a life, and once they did, they would pass it on to the next person. We did this for some of our favorite games, such as Sonic Spinball, Aladdin, and Lion King. Also, I can't forget one of my all-time favorites, X-Men 2 Clone Wars. That was the only game that I've ever experienced that started with a cold open. I personally would love for more modern games to do that, but I won't digress into another topic. It featured all of our favorite characters from the X-Men animated series, and best of all, it featured co-op. We actually had both X-Men Sega Genesis games, but Clone Wars was my favorite between the two. It being the 90s and growing up in a major metro area, we also found ourselves in many arcades. 2 of my favorite spots were Chuck E. Cheese and a place called Nickel City. Chuck E. Cheese in the 90s was a totally different place than it is today. Plus, it was the biggest Chuck E. Cheese there is, the location in San Jose, California. When my mom felt my older brother and I were old enough, we were able to go upstairs and play the arcade games. In the upstairs section, they had amazing games, such as X-Men Children of Atom, Jurassic Park the arcade game, and the X-Men arcade game. There were a bunch of other games, but these were easily my favorites. My older brother and I would move between these cabinets, playing co-op in Jurassic Park and the X-Men arcade game, while duking it out in the X-Men Children of Atom game. This is also where we got to test our fighting game chops against the other kids. I would usually lose, but my 7 to 9-year-old brother would hang in there with the older kids. He was a big Cyclops fan, so he would main him, while I would mostly main Wolverine. When we would play the X-Men arcade game, he would alternate between Cyclops and Nightcrawler, and I would move between Wolverine and Colossus. At Nickel City, my younger brother would run around with us. We would play games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with my older brother playing as Raphael, my younger brother playing as Leonardo, and me playing as Donatello. This is also where I'd play The Simpsons arcade cabinet, Darkstalkers, Primal Rage, various Street Fighter games, and NFL Blitz, along with a bunch of other games and arcade classics. We would run up and down the arcade with our pockets full of nickels, and once we ran out of nickels, we would enjoy the free play games, like Galaga and Pac-Man, until my father finally decided it was time for us to go. Between these arcade games and the Nickelodeon game shows, I had a major desire to own a Sega Saturn, but I'll save my love for Sega for another video. As we moved into the 5th and 6th generation of consoles, the number of gaming siblings grew, and so did the number of game ports on the consoles. The Nintendo 64 was a game changer for us. It allowed me and 3 other siblings to play games at the same time. Games like Star Fox 64 and Diddy Kong Racing were main staples in the house. Then there was also Mario Party, Donkey Kong 64, Mario Kart, Banjo-Tooie, Kirby 64, Pokemon Stadium, and the legendary Fighter's Destiny. I can't go on enough about Fighter's Destiny. I received the game the year I wanted a Game Boy Color for my birthday, but received this game instead. At the time, I was a little disappointed that I hadn't received a Game Boy, but honestly, the game is amazing. The N64 didn't have many fighting games, so this was the game that dominated the console for a while. Playing Master's Challenge, unlocking moves, and then using those moves in versus mode was awesome. Like usual, my older brother was the best out of all of us, but it was a game where I was actually able to hold my own and close that skill gap. The N64 also saw the birth of a new family ritual, and that is playing Smash Bros. There are no words to how groundbreaking this game was for us. As fighting games were a staple in the household, this is a game that allowed all 4 of us to play at the same time and beat the crap out of each other, without having to take turns. Having a 4-way battle royale with a ton of characters, items, and stages gave us basically unlimited replay value. This would lead to us buying a GameCube and Smash Bros. With our own money relatively early within the 6th generation. Outside of Smash Bros., the GameCube was another collaborative gaming machine for us. I still remember the day when I picked up Time Splitters 2 during my school break. My younger brother and I stayed up literally all night playing co-op in the story mode. However, we got stuck on Neo Tokyo. The whole time we played the game without using the map, and yet hadn't figured out that the game tells you where the cameras are looking through the map. This night is forever etched in my head, and I know it's in his as well. That morning, we had to do our chores, and we both fell asleep midway during the process. I woke up in the morning to my siblings playing Mario Kart Double Dash, which we had rented at the same time that I purchased Time Splitters. Time Splitters defined what an FPS could and should be for me. Prior to that, I had played Doom, the first Half-Life, and even Quake, but Time Splitters was different for me. The mission-based structures of the single-player and co-op, the challenges, tons of characters and multiplayer modes. My god, the multiplayer modes. Capture the Bag, Team Deathmatch, Assault, Virus, Flame Tag, and the ability to make your own maps. Time Splitters 3 didn't let down a single bit either. And I got to watch my older brother grow in skill in the game in various ways. In a way, he played the game more akin to a racing game, rather than a traditional FPS. He would have his routes, then he would run through the map, killing off enemies one by one. It was definitely a sight to see. We would eventually get an original Xbox as well. I was never the biggest Halo fan, and I know that's a bit sacrilegious. However, I did enjoy playing co-op with my siblings, as well as Deathmatch. However, by the time Halo 2 was released, I wasn't very interested in the game. I did, however, pick up the Tony Hawk series, specifically Underground 1 and 2. Besides the dope hip-hop soundtrack, those games were just great arcade fun. I was the clear best player in my house, but my sister soon picked up the skill of balancing and optimizing combos. Then there were the fighting games: Third Strike, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Capcom vs. SNK 2, Dead or Alive, Soul Calibur. We were literally in fighting game heaven. Then there were the games like X-Men Legends, which I loved because it gave us a reason to all play together in co-op. During this time, another one of my younger brothers would become of gaming age. He would join in on the fun, but because there was an 8-year age gap between him and I, and 10-year age gap between him and my older brother, there was quite of a bit of a skill gap. Oh, before I forget, that actually reminds me of one of the greatest gaming experiences of all time for me, which was playing Sonic Adventure 2 with all of my siblings. Now, is Sonic Adventure 2 my favorite Sonic game? No. Is it even in my top 5 favorite Sonic games? Again, no, not really. However, this game shaped me as a gamer. I mean, classic Sonic songs like Pumpkin Hill and Escape from the City, playing as the whole squad, raising and racing chows, it was just absolutely phenomenal. We played through the story mode together, everyone using their own assigned characters. Then once story mode was completed, we replayed levels to complete additional challenges, find power-ups for our chows, and move over to the very unbalanced multiplayer mode. This playing together didn't just go for co-op and multiplayer games either, but even translated into single-player experiences. For a long time, and I mean a very long time, I never quite understood why people would watch streamers play games. I always said to myself, why not just play the game yourself? It wasn't until I reflected on my time as a youth watching my siblings play a game did it click in my head. My older brother was a master at fighting games, and those fighting game skills translated great into 3D hack and slash style games. The first 3D hack and slash game that we actually played was Ninja Gaiden for the original Xbox. At first, we all struggled with that first level. Anyone who's ever played the original Ninja Gaiden for Xbox, before the release of Ninja Gaiden Black, would tell you how impossible that game felt. With a bit of a struggle, we all could only make it to the room of that first boss. But only one of us could actually beat that boss on that first day. And that was my older brother. It doesn't mean that he didn't struggle, but he would go on to master that game, constantly obtaining the rank of Master Ninja. My own success was rather limited. I did eventually get the hang of the game, but I usually ranked somewhere around the realm with Ninja Dog. His skills translated in a similar way over to the original Devil May Cry trilogy. He was so good at that game that I thought it was easy just by watching him and wanted to give it a try myself. I soon learned that that was not quite the case, and what I was actually doing was watching my brother give me a masterclass in the game. This didn't just translate to games that I wasn't good at. It was also very entertaining to watch my siblings' choices in games like Fable and Knights of the Old Republic. I would normally play these games as a bad guy, and make the choices that I thought were most fun, while my older brother always found himself playing the role of the hero. I watched him beat Fable the Lost Chapters at least 3 times, and every time he chose the good path. Besides his choices, it was always interesting to watch his playstyle. I would usually use the Big Brute, go into Berserk mode, and hack and slash my way through a fight, where he would focus more on mana, utilize the multi-hit feature, spawn enemy companions, and fight that way. It was also entertaining watching my younger brother play Splinter Cell, watching his choices, figuring out which enemy he was going to take out first, and how he was going to approach a situation. We didn't get a copy of Chaos Theory for quite a bit of time, so we replayed that Xbox Magazine demo probably 100 times, each time trying to take a different approach to the game. During this time, our gaming interests would also begin to diverge. I became interested in a ton of older DOS games, strategy games, and simulators, such as SimCity and Sim Theme Park. My older brother would play a bunch of JRPGs, action games, and open world games, while my younger brother was more into playing some more of the modern games for the Xbox 360 and PS3 over at his friends' houses. I've never really played Bully, and never really got into San Andreas or even the true crime games, but I remember my older brother making his way through all 3 of those games. Also, how could I forget Scarface The World Is Yours, and the 50 Cent Bulletproof game. We did, however, come together for what might arguably be the greatest mashup of my 2 favorite things, hip-hop and fighting games, which is known as Def Jam Fight for New York. My older aged brothers and I had a real love for hip-hop, and fighting games were in our DNA from the Sega Genesis days. So, a game where we got to create our own avatars, listen to our favorite music, and duke it out against some of our favorite artists, it was something that captured all of our attention instantly. All 3 of us beat that game and maxed out our characters, which was a very rare thing for us. When friends would come over and work on music, oh, did I not mention that my brothers and I made music together? I'll save that for some other time. When friends would come over to work on music, Bringing out Def Jam Fight for New York was a necessity. Even when Def Jam wasn't going on, it was the norm to hear the whirling of the fan from the Xbox, while we played back tracks over and over again. Sometimes it would be competitive games like Street Fighter, or co-op games like Halo, or open world games such as GTA, and even single-player RPGs like Jade Empire, or one of my personal favorite FPSs, Urban Chaos. As we all grew up and moved out and scattered around the state, and even the country, we stopped playing games together. None of us ever owned the same consoles at the same time. My siblings were not much of PC gamers, and usually owned lower-end PCs and laptops, so playing PC games online together were mostly out of the question. However, I still shared my Steam catalog with them, using the Steam Family Share feature. We might no longer play together, but I always wanted to keep up the shared experience we all had. I would watch as my younger brother's hours would climb in Batman, while my older brother spent time in Skyrim and The Witcher. Actually, it's a bit dishonest to say we didn't game together anymore, because we kind of did. But it was really only once or maybe twice a year. It was when we would all get together for Christmas or Thanksgiving, which would usually result in all of us playing Smash Brothers together, either Project M or the Wii U version. I would use the Wiimote Nunchuck combo, while the rest of my Pyrrhus siblings would stick to their GameCube controllers. However, once the festivities were over, we all headed back home, and wouldn't game together again for another year or so. Sure, throughout that year, we would talk, exchange text messages, send memes, and so on. But there's nothing like what a few hours together, beating the crap out of each other in Third Strike brings up in conversation. There's just a natural flow to things. No awkward pauses in the conversation, no searching for the next topic. Just everyone hanging out, shooting the breeze. Even if you run out of things to talk about, the game is still in front of you. And at that point, you just talk crap back and forth to each other. Bonds were built in the trenches of Gears of War, deep and personal conversations happened between Mortal Kombat fatalities, and most importantly, we were all brought just a little bit closer. During this time, I would find a new gaming partner in my baby brother. There's a rather large age gap between us, but that didn't stop us from having fun together. When I would go down to visit my mom, I would make sure to bring my laptop and eventually my desktop, so we could game together. The main game early on was Castle Crashers. We moved on to other simpler games like Overcooked, Battle Block Theater, and one of his favorites, Goat Simulator. We of course played Smash Brothers, Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, but he's a generation behind me, so his interest in games are also outside of my retro taste. I would try to introduce him to some of my favorites like Doom, Half-Life, and Fighter's Destiny. While he did enjoy those games, he continues to play the pillars of his generation, Fortnite, Roblox, and Minecraft. One of my favorite memories with him is watching him and my stepfather play Just Dance together. I'm no dancer, and definitely not a fan of the game, but watching those two dance to Beep Beep I'm a Sheep will forever make me laugh and bring me joy. As life got busier for all of us, we all gamed a lot less, and some of us lost a bit of the love for the hobby. Despite this, my love for gaming was reinvigorated by my PS Vita. It was all over two games: Legend of Dragoon, which I really didn't care for as a kid, and Street Fighter Third Strike. Both of these games were among my older brother's favorites. I bought Legend of Dragoon off the PlayStation Store when I saw it on sale and instantly thought of my older brother. I started the game, played it for a few hours, and sent him a screenshot. He played that game for hours and hours as a kid, but never beat it because disc 3 or 4 were damaged. He later tried emulating it on our original Xbox, but that had its own issues and he was never able to complete it there either. After he saw me playing through it on my Vita, he would download it to his phone and play it through emulation. We weren't exactly playing together at this point, but we were still sharing in the experience. It brought me back to my childhood, and memories came flooding in. I practiced in Third Strike in hopes to finally besting my brother in at least a few matches. I trained with all of the fighters, and ended up getting pretty good with Hugo. I warned my brother about my improvements in the game, and we planned to play each other the next time we met up. Though now, I'll never get that match again, or hear his laugh when he enjoys the frustration from me getting comboed by Ken's multiple shurikens. Despite never getting that one last match, or ever seeing the look on his face once he completed Legend of Dragoon, or hearing how proud of me he would have been after the eventual release of Hand Cannon, the one thing that I do have are the memories, which at the end of all this is what this hobby is all about to me, creating shared experiences and moments that we all can hold on to. Sometimes these moments are personal shared experiences between two people, and other times they can be for the entire gaming community. And what I would consider the lowest point of my life Playing together really brought me and my siblings closer together. Three of my siblings and I found ourselves gathered around the TV in my youngest brother's room, playing Street Fighter 4. As we played the game, we discussed my older brother and how good he was at the game, how he would focus cancel and create these really long combos, mastered these one-frame links. It really made the entire occasion bittersweet. This continued later on in the week, as my oldest younger brother arrived and played Smash Brothers with my baby brother. He uses characters like Ness and Lucas and Rob, which no one in the family really used besides him. Ironically, he isn't even a fan of the Mother game series. I don't really even think he's even played one of those games, but he loves those characters in Smash. Playing together is more than just about playing a game together, having fun, or even working with or against each other. It is something that transcends generational divides, a way to bridge connections and bring us closer together for those shared experiences, even in the toughest times. For me personally, playing online or watching a streamer doesn't quite scratch that itch. I need an actual human connection. This doesn't take away from those that enjoy those experiences. Maybe it's generational or just how I'm wired. But physically being together will always remain supreme for me. Though I will continue to play online with my younger brother whenever we're apart. So this goes out to my forever player 1, the Sonic to my Tails, the Ken to my Ryu, the Raphael to my Donatello. I will miss you for an eternity, and I'll love you forever. To the player 3, 4, 5, and 6 in my life, this is for you all as well. I love you all. To those out there who are player 1s in someone's life, and even the player 2s, 3s, and so ons, make sure you tell the other players in your life how much they mean to you, and always find a reason and a way to play together.